Hey, this is Marlon, and welcome back to another episode of Future Steps Creative, the video show and podcast that talks about online business strategies, especially around content marketing, website strategy, email strategy, that sort of thing. So, if this is the sort of thing that you're looking for help with, hopefully I can provide you with some value from all the episodes here that I'm putting out for free. If you need any additional help, you can reach out to me at marlonmcpherson.com. In this episode of the show, I'm talking about email list nurturing. So this is something that's rather important in the grand scheme of things because it's a way for you to actually continue to have a conversation with your audience once they've joined your email list. So nurturing is a way of you building trust, and it's a way for you to even establish more authority and keep you top of mind in your the mind of your subscribers. So even if they're not in a position where they're ready to commit in terms of making a purchase or some other commitment that you're likely to ask them to make, at least you're being kept at the top of mind for them. So when they're ready and able to make a purchase or to solve a problem, they will be thinking about you first because you're the one that's been showing up and delivering value for them. So that's the whole concept of list nurturing. So the first step is obviously someone's joined your email list. What do you do next? You obviously need to have some sort of plan that is going to execute once they've gotten onto your list. The last thing you want to do is to have someone join your email list and send them maybe one email with whatever it is they signed up for, and that's it. That's a case where they can end up forgetting about you. They can end up forgetting even why they're on your list. So when you do eventually email them weeks or months later, they might be a little bit surprised or unsure of who you are because you just haven't been emailing them. Um, I've actually had this issue. If you recall, on my last episode of the podcast, I mentioned on my Marley Mac breed, on my Marley Mac, bleh. I mentioned on my Marley Mac Media brand that I had a music production course that I've started to remake, and I'm about to launch it. I was about to launch it, and I wanted to launch it to my email list, which at the time I had about 600 people on there. And one of the things that I was running into was the fact that I realized it was going to be a potential problem where I hadn't emailed them often enough. So therefore, some of those people on the list were just sitting there dormant, and the email addresses sometimes were bad email addresses, but they were sitting there on my list. In some cases, it would cost money. In my case, it wasn't because I had them on MailChimp, and MailChimp allows you up to 2,000 subscribers without you having to pay anything unless you need additional services. So I started to do a re-engagement campaign, which is where I started to put a plan in place of having several emails sent out to them just to warm them back up to see whether or not they are still engaged. And if they're not, I would basically, it does two things. One is it would trigger unsubscribes. You want people to unsubscribe from your list. That's a way of naturally purging your list and keeping it healthy. The more you email, the more people will unsubscribe. It's just natural because not everyone wants to be there long term. And some people, like I said, sign up and they forget that they're on your list. So as a result of that, those emails that I send out to re-engage them, it could be just things that I think um, would kind of like be intriguing enough for that audience to see whether or not they would open the email. That's one. And two, whether or not they would actually take any form of action by clicking a link or replying to a question that I might have asked them, because that's one way to actually see if you can interact with your audience by asking them a question to reply within that email. That's a really simple, easy way that all they need to do is hit reply. So what I've done is I've looked at who hasn't really engaged with those emails. I think I sent about 2 or 3 emails out, and unfortunately, not a lot of them had responded. And I then looked at all the people that hadn't opened an email for like months, and I deleted them. So this was approximately about 100 emails that I just shed from my list, and this is better for your numbers, because at the end of the day, they're not going to skew the numbers in terms of open rates and things like that, all the stats that are relevant to your email list. Um, so that's what the consequences of not emailing your list often enough can be. So I mentioned that you'll be top of mind, and I mentioned about engagement. So there's three things basically. It helps to build trust, helps to keep you top of mind, and also with the engagement. So link clicks and replies. I mentioned those already. All right. So someone's joined your list. What do you do next? What is it that you need to have in place to keep your list engaged, or nurtured, basically? Well, you need to have a nurturing sequence, and this is something that can be up to you to decide how that pans out. But it's a sequence of emails that automatically would go out at scheduled intervals from the time that they signed up, at scheduled times from the time that they signed up, to whenever it is that you decide that you want to end it, basically. So you would set up a series of emails. I recommend sending out approximately 3 to 5 emails automatically once they've gotten that free thing that they signed up for. And the purpose of these 3 to 5 emails is not to sell. They are to deliver more value and to establish more trust and to establish more authority and to really train your audience, train your subscribers to want to look at your email, or to have them become familiar with the emails coming into their inbox. Because even if they don't open these emails, and the fact that they're seeing your emails back to back for the next 3 to 5 days, it puts it has a psychological effect. Once they see the name, you're being placed at the top of mind. So they don't have to necessarily open the emails. They could simply just look at the email, skip it, or mark as read, and you'll still be top of mind because they know it's from you. Mind you, if they want to unsubscribe, they can go in and unsubscribe. So sometimes people sign up for an email list or a newsletter or whatever, and they at the moment don't necessarily need everything that's being offered by that resource, but they want to keep the emails coming into their inbox because they know at some point they're probably going to go back through the history of emails that's been sent to them, or they might see a headline pop up in the subject area that actually is quite intriguing, and they might actually file away that email for reading later, or they might open it and say, okay, I'll check on this another time, or they'll file it in their email folders to say, like, this is a resource that I can come back to. So that's one way that somebody could use these emails coming out. I certainly do that. Sometimes I subscribe to multiple newsletters, but I don't necessarily need all the resources at that time. And I just file the ones that I do need away, the particular emails that I do need at that point in time. So um, once you've set up that series of emails, the next thing, once the 5 days or 3 days have passed, is to then have them go on your normal email campaign, which is where you send out a newsletter style email at whatever on whatever schedule you've decided. So you could do it on a weekly basis. You could send out a bi-weekly newsletter or an update or whatever you want to call it. And this then continues to nurture your list. Even if you don't have products to sell or anything that you want to pitch, the idea is that you keep that audience warm. And what you could do is utilize the engagement aspect of your audience, your email audience, and do surveys to find out what it is they need help with the most. You could poll the audience to see how much of your audience is interested in a particular thing. And as a result, you could then create products or services that better serve their needs and have a higher chance, a higher likelihood of having a hit product or a hit service coming out because it's directly in response to the feedback that you've gotten from the audience. And that's why it's so important to actually build an audience beforehand before you actually come out with a product and then try and find somebody to sell it to. That's a backwards way of looking at it. Unfortunately, that's how a lot of people do it. I've made that mistake in the past, and I'm older and wiser now. and obviously you learn from your mistakes, right? So it can really help you with having your product or service coming out and avoiding it being a flop, because it's a direct response. If you've done the research, polling your audience, doing surveys, and having the right people, knowing who you're targeting, and having the right people then come in on that list, it can tremendously accelerate the process of finding the right product to offer. So that's pretty much all I have on that aspect of it. Um, I'm recording this, I believe today's the 28th. So we're coming up to the end of 2019. I have been busy working on my projects, and unfortunately, I haven't put out a podcast for a little. I think I skipped a week or two. I think this is going to be the last podcast episode coming out for this year. It's my well, I have some projects coming out for the new year that I will tell you about on future episodes, and I'm kind of working on how those are going to go. But I'm really looking forward to this coming year, 2020, because um, a lot of things have been put in place, and I've made plans, and I've kind of put together my strategy going forward. You don't want to wait until the new year to make your resolutions, right? You want to make your resolutions from before and start executing on them, giving yourself momentum going into the new year. So that's my little tip there for you. Don't wait until January to actually start executing. Set the stage from now, prepare from now, and keep doing what you're doing, because the momentum will push you forward. If you got any questions or feedback for me, leave me a comment on YouTube or send me an email via my website. If you're new to this online business strategy, marketing, and website and content creation, that type of thing, I have a couple of free things on my website that you can go ahead and download or get access to. So one is my free video workshop, which talks about my 3-step strategy for lead generation and sales for my digital products and services. I'll show you basically how all my marketing is set up without having to use any paid ads, and how I get leads and stuff to go on my email list. The other one is my website starter guide. And this is if you're starting a brand new website for your business and you don't know where to start, you don't know what things you need in place and how to prep for the site. This guide gives you all the information you need on what additional services you need to look for. How do you get your website name, that sort of thing. How do you find the hosting services, and the ones that I recommend, and all of that are in there, and any other information about content creation for the website or content writing for the website, for the pages, that sort of thing. Head over to the homepage of marlonmcpherson.com and you'll be able to see those two opt-in guides, those two opt-in options. If you've got any questions, you can also leave them inside the Facebook group, Future Steps Creative, and I will jump in there and try and answer questions from time to time. But I really want to build that up as a community so people can network and help out each other, as well as I can go in there and give some feedback and some comments, and just give people some free advice in there as well. So thank you for listening, spending your time. Want to wish you a happy new year when it comes. Take care and all the best.